Good morning. So yesterday I jumped rope for the first time in a while, and this morning I woke up with a little bit of a niggle in my Achilles tendon. So I thought it would be a great opportunity for me personally to come out of my comfort zone, stand in front of a camera and do a short video series on tendinopathies in general. And we'll start with the Achilles, but let's bring this in a little bit closer here. Okay, so what is a tendon? A tendon attaches muscle to bone. Okay, you can see the white areas here are tendons. Okay, tendons attach muscle to bone. Force is generated in a muscle, the muscle contracts, that force is transmitted through the tendon, and that moves the bone. But it's not just the force of the muscle that is transmitted through the tendon. The tendon itself stores elastic energy. In other words, it acts a little bit like a spring. So if you imagine the Achilles tendon here, okay, here's a foot, okay, the Achilles tendon here. As I walk forwards, the Achilles tendon stretches, and that elastic energy allows me to propel me forwards. Okay, so that spring here allows me to propel forwards. So if you imagine any time that I want to generate power or force, if I want to throw something, I'm first going to stretch those tendons first. Okay, it's a lot harder just from the power of the muscle just to throw. I want to create that stretch in order to create that power. If I want to jump high, I'm going to go down low first. Okay, so that is the load going through the tendon. So you can appreciate also that if I am jumping rope, okay, then that is going to be a lot of force or a lot of load going through the tendon. And whenever the load exceeds my capacity to deal with it, then you're going to run into trouble. Okay, I posted a while back about Tim Gabbett's work. If you are if you're putting load 1.5 times more than what you're prepared for, in other words, your capacity, your risk of injury is quite high. Okay, so there are two areas where it's common to get Achilles tendinopathy. One is the insertion point on the heel, okay, insertional tendinopathy, and one is kind of this area behind the ankle, a little bit higher, a couple of inches higher up, which is mid-portion Achilles. Okay, so we said that tendons are good at absorbing force along them, but they're not very good at compressive forces. And often what can happen, especially at the insertion point, is that as I stretch, you're getting a compressive force over here. And sometimes that compressive force is what can aggravate the Achilles tendinopathy. So that's really important. So when we come to the exercises, to know how to not aggravate the tendon, not develop those compressive forces, and yet increase the capacity of the tendon as we strengthen. So the number one treatment for Achilles tendinopathy is a graded loading program. And if you consider that 6 to 7 times your body weight goes through the tendon when we run, you can appreciate that those loads could and should be quite heavy. Now, if I just bring this in again here, just a couple of things to consider. So we can load the tendon in a number of ways, which we'll go through. But also consider that there are two muscles which attach into the Achilles. One is this muscle here, the big calf muscles, the gastrocnemius. That goes over the knee. And one underneath it, deeper, is the soleus muscle, which doesn't go over the knee. So we can actually bias each one of those muscles by bending or straightening the knee when we come to strengthen. And the other thing to consider is where the tendinopathy is. Is it the insertional or is it mid-portion? Because if it's insertional, we're going to be a little bit more careful in terms of the position that we stretch the Achilles when we're doing it. So the basic movement is a heel raise, and you can actually control the amount of load going through the tendon. If you go up on both legs and shift the movement, shift your weight across, and even if you can lift the other leg, and you can hold it in that position. And you can hold that position for 15, even 30 seconds. And then I would come down really, 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 really slowly. And at the moment I'm doing it on the flat. But if we wanted to get, if it was a mid-portion Achilles problem and we're not worried about compressing the insertional part of the tendon, then you can even come down below the step. Coming down, 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 down. So we're really getting a stretch at the end, or controlling the load through the tendon throughout the whole range. One thing also, if you were to be upright, or think of my center of mass is going through the tendon. If I'm actually leaning forwards, you'll actually feel that's easier. So you want to really make sure that you can, if you can, be as straight, as vertical as possible. And the other thing we said was we want to access both the portion which attaches into the gastrocnemius and then also the portion to the soleus. And we said we can differentiate that by bending and straightening the knee. So we can also, I'll show you from the side, probably easier. Okay, you can do a bent knee. So you'd keep the knee angle the same and then come down, just moving the ankle. So don't do this. Okay, so you keep the knee angle the same and then come down on the Achilles. And you can probably see me shaking there. That's a lot more difficult for me than on the straight. I can control that, but this is now far more difficult for me on one leg. So that's the soleus portion, which is probably more important for me to strengthen. So just to wrap up, we want to progressively load the tendon. The Achilles tendon is the largest tendon in the body, designed to take body weight several times over through a very small surface area. So you're only going to build up the capacity if we go quite heavy, and I would definitely go slow at first, so heavy and slow, and then progressively heavier and more challenging. And the exercises we did, you can add weight, and you can go up and down. And only then would I start to build in a little bit more dynamic things like the skipping, etc., etc., etc. But it's really important that you progressively load and strengthen it. And I would probably even avoid the classic stretches, particularly if it's an insertional tendinopathy. But even the others, you're more likely to aggravate than help with stretching. We want to load throughout. You'll get a stretch through the tendon, but it's a stretch which is it's a loaded stretch. So you're actually increasing the capacity throughout range. Hope that helps.